All right, we are back for another edition of Beyond the Skills podcast. I got a good friend of mine, just a real dude that he's true to the game, right? There's not too many people that have as much experience that this guy has, right? And before we get started, we'll get into his background, his life, where he was, say, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, where he is today. But we're going to keep it raw. We're going to keep it real. You guys know we don't hold anything back. Me and Mama Rood, we don't sugarcoat shit for you. You know what I like about this guy? He's not going to sugarcoat shit for you guys either. We talk about everything: business, life, relationships, real estate, marriage, sex, drugs, rock and roll. It's all tied together, guys. You can't just be good at real estate or just be good at business and think you're going to have all of life's problems figured out.
Right.
But without further ado, I've got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Eric Cline. Eric, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you, man. Appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here, man. First time in Lafayette, so you've treated us good so far.
Yeah. How'd you like Mama Rood's crawfish etouffee?
Amazing.
Good stuff, huh?
That's the only reason my son's here right now.
That's right. So before we get started, Eric, I met you, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I think I spoke at an event, and then you reached out and said, hey, man, I want to come to one of your masterminds. You came out to Allies, and then we got to know each other. I've watched you come up. I've watched you start your journey and just watch you just explode, right? But who is Eric, 15 years ago, so we can get a whole generalized view of who Eric is, where his background is, before we get into the deep nitty-gritty of what you do and how you're helping people and how you've scaled your business so faster than anything I've ever seen.
Appreciate that.
In this wholesaling side.
So the guy sitting here today definitely wasn't the guy 15 years ago. You wouldn't have wanted me in your house 15 years ago. But so going back, without getting too of a drug out story, literally drug out story, is from 13 to 28, heavily addicted to drugs. I grew up in the Midwest, came from a great middle class family. I think I was in like 6th grade, my parents divorced, and it literally destroyed me. It destroyed me. I remember the day I got the news, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, hid in a closet from my parents, and I refused to go to school. And it's like, that was the moment my life just took a spiraled out of control. Because 6th grade, I started using drugs and alcohol. I was 13 years old. And the first time I ever drank, I remember I blacked out and I numbed feelings that I didn't want to feel. And it was the best feeling I could ever have. So from 13 to 28, I heavily abused drugs and alcohol. And it was the progression, right? It was the drinking, the weed, and then it got to, for the last 5 to 6 years, the drug that ultimately brought me to my knees was crack cocaine. And it was something I said I would never do. And my white ass was up in the projects in Chicago, the Cabrini Green projects. If anybody knows Chicago, those were some of the worst projects in the city. And a white guy like me did not belong in those projects. And it was, I remember when the dope man looks at you, he robs you once, and you come back to him. And I remember it was this big old black dude, man, and I was trampling through the snow in the projects, and my pants were all iced up almost to my knees. When you walk through snow, your pants get hard. And I went and I was knocking on his door, screaming, "Let me in." He opened the door and he grabbed me by the shoulders and he goes, "Listen, white boy." He goes, "I'm here to protect you. You don't belong here." And I was like, "Just give me one more." And I didn't care. I would have done anything for that next hit.
How old were you?
I was 28 years old, man. And it was about 2 weeks after that guy shaking me, trying to talk some sense into me, I'd hit what I consider to be my bottom. And my bottom was a very clear vision of, I was either going to make some massive changes or death. I was knocking on death's door. The very last using for me, Chris, was I got it tattooed on my knuckles. August 9th of 2009 is when I quit. But the 8 days prior to that date, it was me in a bedroom, I locked myself in a room, and the dope man would circle the back door like clockwork. He knew when I'd be out, and he would serve me up dope. And for 8 days, I didn't sleep. I was smoking. I wouldn't go outside. I was gutting electrical cords to pack sockets to where I could put the dope in on it. And all my lighters had burnt out, so I was lighting it from a gas stove. And if, a socket's only so long, so I had to get so close to the stove, I was literally burning my face.
Yep.
And I remember I had singed off all my eyebrows were gone, my eyelashes were gone. I had blisters on both sides of my face because I'd switched sides because I couldn't take the pain. And it was after 8 days, I remember hearing helicopters. I heard police cars show up. They kicked in the front door. I heard the ambulance and my family come down this hallway I was living in, or of the house I was living in. I was renting a room. I was renting it from the guy that owned the house was a Chicago police officer. And so I was out of my mind at this stage. And I remember my mom was out there just crying hysterically, saying, "Leave him alone, he's dead. Just leave him be, he's dead." And my brother was out there trying to get in, just, it was commotion, absolute commotion. I was in the room under the covers, and mind you, for 8 days I was pissing in the corner of my room on bath towels because I couldn't go out and across the hallway and use the restroom. I was that messed up. I was paranoid out of my mind. And the paramedics got everybody back. They calmed everybody down, and I heard them click the stretcher because they had to get it in the door because it was a narrow hallway, and they had to get the stretcher into the room. And I remember I was sitting under my covers, just sweating. I was in my underwear, just sweating. And they said on 3 they were going to kick the door in, and they said 1, 2, and I jumped up out of my bed. I kicked the fucking door open. Well, I pushed it open, and there was no one there.
Wow.
It was me by myself in a hallway.
With your illusions.
With my illusions. And since that day, there was a pint of vodka sitting on the table. And I dumped because I couldn't gain the courage to go outside and face reality. And I had $8 to my name. And I had taken $3,500 out of my annuity from the union because I was a union carpenter. I was blackballed from every job site in the city. My name was on a list. This guy can't be on the job site. And so I smoked through $3,500 in 8 days, which for me back then was a shit ton of money, man, especially when you're smoking it. Yeah. And there was a pint of vodka sitting on the kitchen table. I poured it into a Gatorade bottle to mix it up because, vodka at that point when you're all messed up, it was strong. So I downed it, and it gave me enough courage to walk to the train station. And from the train station, I had just enough money to make it back to my hometown where my aunt was at because I had burned all bridges. My mom wasn't answering my calls. Not that they couldn't deal with this guy. Yeah. It's not that they didn't love me. They couldn't deal with me. Yeah. I had burnt the bridge.
You were lying, stealing, cheating.
Everything. Yeah. Everything. Stealing. I wasn't allowed at family holidays, and they didn't celebrate my birthday at this point. And my aunt was at the bus station waiting for me. And she opened her door to her home to me. I stayed there for 24 hours, and because they still drank and stuff like that, and they went to work one day. And this is when I finally realized I was doing it for me because they went to work and they asked me to mow their lawn. And I opened the refrigerator door to grab some water, and all I saw was a beer in the back shelf. Out of everything in the refrigerator, I saw a beer. I called my aunt up and I said, "I can't stay here." And she goes, "Why?" I said, "Because you guys don't have to change for me." I was like, "There's alcohol in the house, in the fridge, and I just can't be around this stuff right now." So my buddy that was clean, that I used to actually smoke crack with, he got clean and I didn't know it. I actually called him up to see what he was doing. And I said, "Hey, Ryan, what you got going on, man?" Hoping, back in my mind, I was hoping he was still using in a way. Yeah. And he goes, "Dude, I got 3.5 years clean." And I was like, "Can I please come stay with you?" He opened his door to me for 28 days. And then I went down to South Florida with 29 days clean and checked myself into a treatment center because I had 60 days left on my insurance to get me into a treatment center. He put me on a plane with 2 white t-shirts and two pairs of shorts, man. And I can say the rest is history. But for the first time, I got clean for myself because I didn't want to die. Yeah. I ultimately wanted to live.
You know why I love this story, Eric, and why I think you're a special, unique person, because you've been through something most people have never been through.
Man, I've been in
and you've been to the bottom.
Yeah.
And when you go to the bottom, you never want to go back.
Never.
And I can relate. I went to rehab, so we've shared stories. I went to rehab at 22. I was addicted to amphetamines, Adderall, and I was put on that as prescription drugs when I was 6 years old. So I can relate to you. So I don't think I got to the point as bad as you. I OD'd twice, and
That's bad.
From GHB. I don't know if you ever heard of that stuff. Embarrassed my whole family. So I can relate to a lot of this story. Family was kind of, starting to like not want to have anything to do with me. And I want to say, and I'm telling you guys this, because hitting rock bottom is almost a gift sometimes.
Brother, I've seen it. There ain't much I don't want to say there ain't much I'm not scared of.
Yeah.
But like, it can't get, I've seen the worst of the worst for me. Like I was knocking on death's door.
Yep.
Legitimately knocking on death's door. It was clear as day what I was facing.
Yeah. You can relate this to real estate and like cycles and patterns, right? When what goes up must come down, what goes down must come up. Now, some people don't come out of that down point; they'll kill themselves. But you had enough wherewithal to pull yourself up because you probably knew you were better than that.
Yeah. That's what I knew it.
I knew it too for myself. So you got yourself into rehab.
Yeah.
You got clean. What happened next after you got clean?
So I got out of treatment and I'm heavily tattooed, and I was in the union. So like my appearance is okay on union job sites. Like I'm a normal looking guy on those kind of job sites. I go down to South Florida. It's a right to work state. There are no unions. If they are, they're very slim down there.
Yeah.
And so I got out of treatment, checked myself into a halfway house, and I was now job searching. And I'm like, holy shit, what did I do with myself? I let everybody draw on me, right? And so
and is this accumulation? Like, when did you get your first tattoo?
I was 14 years old.
And you just kept adding them till you was...
I've never stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, I am from the neck down to the ankles. I'm fully tattooed. And so I get out of treatment and I think I'm going to get back into the construction field. Well, in South Florida, for a white guy down there, you're not going to get paid nothing. They have access to labor at pennies on the dollar down there. And so I was like, man, this isn't going to be the path I can take.
Yeah.
So I started going to all these different interviews. I mean, I was going to restaurants, trying to be anything, like just get a job to pay my halfway house rent. Now, mind you, in the union in Chicago, back even in 2008, I was making $42 an hour.
Wow, in 2008.
As a journeyman carpenter. This is the one thing I knew I had the work ethic, because the very last job I was on, my superintendent, he said, Eric, you're too much a liability to be on my job site. He goes, I have worked with very few people that have the work ethic that you have when you show up ready to work. He goes, go get yourself clean and you can walk on any job site that I'm on. So, but just bringing that into South Florida, I couldn't find a job. I was being turned down by everybody. The self-doubt started sinking in. I mean, I couldn't even be a waiter. They were looking at me and they'd say, your appearance just doesn't fit here. So I couldn't find a job anywhere. And I ended up, my now wife, girlfriend at the time, Shyla, she went to a makeup store and bought me some tattoo cover-up. So I would go to all these interviews and I would show up looking like I didn't have any tattoos. And I got a job as a busboy at a restaurant. I worked there for 2 weeks. I didn't have a license at the time. I was riding 2 buses back and forth to get to this job. And I worked there for 2 weeks. And my manager handed me the paychecks. It was a company called Charlie Crabs on the water in Fort Lauderdale. I worked there 2 weeks and he handed me a paycheck. It was for $146. I got that check and I told him, I'm out of here, dude. This ain't for me. And Shyla came and picked me up, and I was frustrated. I'm like, I had the fuck-its again for the first time being clean. I was like, this is fucking bullshit. Like, I'm better than this. But at the time, that's where I was at in my life.
Yeah.
And she picks me up and I said, honey, or I said, Shyla, because we were just dating at this time, fresh into dating. And I said, I'm going back to Chicago. I was like, fuck South Florida. And she goes, what do you mean? What are you going back to South Florida for? Or what are you going back to Illinois for? And I was like, there's nothing here for me. I was like, fuck this. And she goes, why don't you go to a meeting and share about how you feel right now? And I went, raised my hand at a NA meeting, got honest and vulnerable for the first time, and let a whole room of people know how I was feeling. And just so happens that night when I went home, there was a white piece of paper hanging on a door. And this is one of those things where it's no coincidence.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to fucking throw the towel in and quit. There was a white piece of paper hanging on the door that said telemarketers wanted $15 an hour. And it was my end to a call center. And since that day, my life has forever changed.
Sales job.
I got my first, I put a headset on for the first time in my life. And for me, it was the new rush. It was the new drug. I got the butterflies. I got anxiety. Yeah. I got nerve, and now I'm going on 15 years in the game of, I've never taken a headset off my head, and I've cleaned house.
And now you're changing the game.
I'm changing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got that sales job. I'm assuming you excelled right away.
There was over 200 individuals on the phones in this company. When I walked in, it was, the only way you can explain it, it was the Wolf of Wall Street. It was all the visions you think of a massive call center. I walked in and that's what these guys had. One of the owners was from Brooklyn, New York. And there was over 200 people. I started off as just a cold caller. My people in my family thought I was nuts. They said, Eric, you're going to be a telemarketer. You were a union carpenter making $42 an hour, and you're now a telemarketer. And I didn't listen to any of them. And I jumped on the phones as a cold caller for 6 months. I turned into their number one cold caller. I could generate more leads than any cold caller they had. And my manager came up to me and he was like, Eric, we want to transition you into a closer. Well, I was making as much money as a cold caller as I was in the union. And I'm like, dude, I'm good. Like, let me just stay right here. Like, I'm in my lane. And he's like, no. You're going to move into a closer. So again, the self-doubt, the insecurities all synced in. And within a year, I was their number one sales guy of 200 people. And I say this, it wasn't that I was the most talented guy in the room. I just outworked everybody. I was the first one to show up. I was the last one to leave. I was waiting for someone to open the door for me to walk into the building. I was the first one at the building every single day. Nobody beat me there. And when it was time to go at night, the manager literally would be shutting the lights off saying, Eric, dude, I'm done. We got to go. So I outworked them all, which ultimately my work ethic trumped all their skills. Until
say that again.
My work ethic trumped all the talent in that building.
You listen to what a man just said.
Yeah.
His work ethic
Trump the skills.
Yeah. I mean, skills are nothing without work ethic.
Without work ethic, it's a waste.
Yeah.
It's a waste. You'll just get by. I was watching guys in there. I would sit and listen to them, and they were wordsmiths. I was like, Jesus Christ, these guys are talented. And knowing I didn't sound like them, but I'm like, all right, I got to outwork these motherfuckers. Mm-hmm. So I just outworked them all, which...
More hours.
Everything.
Early, leave late.
Everything. I outworked them. I cared more. Yeah. I was, for the first time in my life, Chris, I didn't have a ceiling over my head. I saw a massive opportunity for me. And it took a year and a half, and it's not that my job was done there. I knew enough to say, and my confidence was building at this point.
Because you're number one at this moment.
I'm number one. I'm closing a ton of deals. I'm showing up, staying late, and I'm like...
Confidence is up, clean. Not drinking, nothing.
Nothing. I was dialed in.
Yeah.
At that stage of my life, for the first time, I was dialed in. And I told my wife, at this point, we're engaged. And now, mind you, my wife has been with me since the day I walked out of treatment. Been with me since day one. She's my ride or die, my day one. She had confidence in me before I ever had it in myself. And after a year and a half of working there, I'm always blessed that I had that opportunity, because it was literally the stepping stone to me getting to where I'm at today. It opened an opportunity for me in an industry that I didn't know existed. And what I say industry is the virtual selling model.
Yeah. What I like too is that necessity breeds, necessity breeds invention. You know, you said you couldn't get a job or you felt uncomfortable because of all your tattoos.
Yeah.
But on a headset, nobody could see your tattoos.
No.
So you're like, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
And that almost gave you an unfair advantage to everybody else that didn't, maybe they were in a call center with you and had headphones, but they didn't have tattoos.
Right.
They didn't have that experience where like, shit, if I don't make this work, I can't get a job because of my tattoos. I'll pick that up. That was probably a blessing in disguise that kind of propelled you to want to outshine everybody.
Yeah.
Like this is where I can shine and not be insecure.
I knew I was limited on back then. Like today, I believe my tattoos are an asset for me, right? But back then, when I didn't have the confidence, it was for me. And I never thought about it like that, man. I really didn't. Like, my back was almost up against the wall.
It was against the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that because I try to figure out. I'm watching. I'm listening. You know, what made it happen? I would guarantee I'd put money on it. You had a little bit more push and oomph because in the back of your mind, those tattoos were bothering you. Like, shit, I can't just go get a regular job.
Yeah,
we got to make this shit work.
Got to make it work, and it worked.
It worked.
Yeah. So after a year and a half of that, Shyla and I now we're like, hey, we had a little bit of money in the bank for the first time ever. Now, my wife is a recovering heroin addict. She used to put the needle in her arm. And she has today, I think, 18 or 19 years clean.
Wow.
So she was a year and a half into that, and I'm like, hey, honey, I feel I care about the company more than the owner does. Not that they weren't doing a good job, but I'm like, I feel I just care more. And I was like, why don't we try and do our own thing? And at this time, we had a spare bedroom, and I bought literally a stack of paper leads in an industry I knew nothing about. It wasn't what we were doing at this guy's company. It was a timeshare exit model. Didn't even really know what a timeshare was, but I was told people didn't like them. And there's a model out there where the companies get a bunch of people in conference rooms, they pitch them from a podium, and then they go and sit at their tables and they help them get out of timeshares. Again, I'm like, my tattoos are going to prevent me from going and people taking me serious in front of 100 people. Trying to get the middle, your older white people, they're going to look at me and think different, man. So I was like, I'm going to do this shit over the phone. What they're doing at conference rooms, I'm going to do over the telephone. And picked the phone up, stack of leads, Shyla was my cold caller at the time. She'd have her stack of leads. We had 2 cordless phones on her desk. She'd get someone interested. Hey, do you want out of your timeshare? Yes. Boom. She'd hand the phone to me. I'd run upstairs. She'd grab the second phone, start dialing again, and then set an appointment for me to call the next person. Well, it was her and I in a bedroom, and within 8.5 years, we grew that company to having over 150 people in one office. I had over 100 people in my sales pit, and we were doing over $34 million a year in gross sales.
Wow. That's incredible.
Crazy, man.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So what year is this?
We incorporated that company in 2012, and in 2019 is when it went to hell in a handbasket when I was trying to exit it.
You were trying to sell it. You got offered to get bought out. Let's talk about that. Who was buying you out? How much?
Private equity.
Okay.
So new to being an entrepreneur. I didn't know you could sell businesses. Mm-hmm. And
they approached you. Obviously you didn't.
My banker asked me, bro, what do you do? We were getting approved for a mortgage. Me and my wife, coming
He saw your tax returns, balance sheet. He's like, this dude's making jack.
He said, bro, what do you do? Told him the model. He's now my dear friend, and he's my financial advisor. Mm-hmm. He goes, what exactly do you do? He goes, this is a cash cow. Because at the time, me and my wife, we were netting $8 million a year. Netting to the bank. Net. And so we were getting approved for a mortgage for a $7 million home. And he looks at our financials and he's like, let me look into this a little bit more. And he looks at it, he goes, have you ever thought about selling this business? And I was like, bro, what are you even talking about? And he goes, I can structure a deal for you. He ended up getting us in with a broker. And we spent probably a year and a half structuring a deal. We got all the right people in place. We got our books cleaned up. We got it ready to go to the market. And they prepared this nice pamphlet they send it out to over 300 private equity firms. And they were going to take the 5 best offers, and then they were all flying in. They were going to walk our facility. We were going to go out to dinner with the owners of the fund, private equity firms. And so one of the offers that we got was $147 million for 100% of the business. We got an offer of
$147 million.
140.
How much debt did you have on that company at the time?
0.
Wow.
We had 0 debt. We bootstrapped it. The first 30 days, we were a profitable company. And we used our own money to fund the whole company.
All right.
0 debt.
That's insane.
And we can backtrack just a little bit, but so there was an offer for $147 million for 100% of the business. There was an offer for 51% of the company for $54 million. The 147 ended up bowing out. They flew out to come see us, and then they ultimately bowed out of the deal. So the 147, the 54 million for 51% is the one we ended up going under an LOI with, letter of intent. Yep. And they went through their whole due diligence process. They did their financial due diligence on it. They audited our books, our processes, our systems. They came back, visited our entire facility again. The reason they were so interested in us, they also owned a debt consolidation and a credit repair company. So they were going to be able to take our database and sell them 2 times over again to their existing companies they owned. They did all their due diligence. We had a closing date scheduled 60 days out from hell in a handbasket. And so me and my wife were like, shit, we Gucci. Like, we American dream, we good. 54 million. We structured all of our accounts. We were pulling the kids out of school. We were going to Hawaii. Like, we were spending the money. And mentally, we were spending this. We were planning our future.
Yeah.
We told our entire family, get ready on this date. We're taking you all to Hawaii. We're renting 2 amazing Airbnbs. We're getting everybody Jeeps and mopeds. And like, we're going to celebrate what we've been able to do for the family. And we were flying in to Chicago to go visit my family for Christmas. And I never get Wi-Fi service on planes. I kick back and I sleep. And as soon as we get to the point where your phone gets service, my phone starts blowing up. And I'm like, that's weird. They're wishing me Merry Christmas. What's going on? I open it up, and it's my buddy that helped get me in contact with the broker. And it was the broker, and it was my attorneys. And they go, you just got hit with the lawsuit. And I was like, all right, please tell me what that means. Like, all right, help me out here. And they're like, one of the biggest developers ended up suing me. And it was a company I had a working relationship with for 7 years. I would send them files. They would help me get the person out of a timeshare. We had a working relationship for 7 years. We believe, and I'm absolutely certain today, when the book went out to over 300 private equity firms, they caught wind we were going to be the first exit company to exit. And they knew if a private equity firm got behind us, we were going to disrupt their paper way more than we were. Because 65% of our business model was disrupting the paper they held.
What does that mean?
If you go to get they targeted a consumer that can't afford to pay for a timeshare outright. Your average timeshare was $25,000. So they targeted a group that can't afford to stroke a $25,000 check. So what they do is they have them put a 10% down payment, which is $2,500, and then they finance the rest for them in-house. You can't go to a bank and get finance for a timeshare.
There's no tangible asset.
Yes. So they would hold the paper, but they would do anywhere from 11 to a 21.9% interest.
Wow.
65% of our model was geared towards people where we would disrupt that paper. They would pay us to break that contract. And when they paid us, they would stop paying the paper.
Wow. So you were helping a lot of people.
We had a 2% cancellation rate. Meaning only 2% of the people we couldn't help get out of a timeshare. For almost 8 years, we helped thousands and thousands of people.
So you were pissing off a lot of people then on the other side, the other end of that where the receiving end no longer getting that receiving end.
Of course, because then the timeshare model was really on the back end. They securitized that paper and sold it. And when I say we disrupted it, we were signing up 650 timeshare owners a month. 65% of those
that wanted out of that timeshare.
That wanted out of a timeshare.
You were just pulling data, finding the people.
All inbound leads. We in the beginning it was cold call, but then we ended up doing paid ads. So we had Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, Howard Stern, all endorsing us.
Y'all were running ads with Rush Limbaugh
on his radio station. Go to Resort Release. They will get you out of your timeshare. Laura Ingraham. They're the #1 timeshare exit company in the world.
So you weren't just really good at sales back then. You were obviously you had to be good at marketing too.
Yeah.
So I want to make note of that.
We were spending anywhere from $350 to $500,000 a month in marketing.
$500,000.
And wow. we were grossing just over $3 million a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're getting sued.
Yeah.
So now I'm glad you broke that down because I heard you tell the story and I didn't quite understand. Now I really understand. So you were getting people out of contracts that signed contracts with timeshares that wanted out that no longer wanted to be there.
Yes.
Pissed off the people.
The developers
that were selling all these timeshares.
Yeah.
Heard you were selling, and then once you got bought up by private equity, it was going to be a next level thing because they're going to probably pour millions of dollars to scale your business even more, possibly put them out of business.
Completely disrupt their industry. And so we got our first lawsuit, and it was by the #1 timeshare company in the world.
What was this company worth?
Oh God, I think they do $4 to $5 billion a year.
Okay, so it's huge.
Yeah, they start with a W.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to say it because of my settlement.
Yeah.
And then so my broker, he goes, he talked to the private equity firm, and he said, "Listen, one lawsuit doesn't scare us." He said, we're still going to the closing table on this deal. Bam, let's fucking go. Right? Didn't ruin my Christmas.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, my broker called, or we get a call from our lawyers, and they're like, "You got a carbon copy lawsuit. Same attorney, different developer." It was so carbon copy, they forgot to take the name of the first timeshare developer out of some of the lawsuit.
So they were getting together, collaborating, said, let's go after Eric's company. Let's get that way we can scare him.
We got to take him down.
Yeah.
We at this point, Chris, we were either one or two. I always say we were the largest timeshare exit company in the U.S. We were either one or two. A buddy of mine owned a company and still today owns it in Tennessee. He's got probably a dozen lawsuits against him, right? He can't get out.
Yeah.
He can't get out. I ultimately, we got in these lawsuits, and the private equity firm said, "Listen, we got to step back. We got to see how these play out because we don't know how many more are coming."
Yeah, they didn't want to buy something that they can't do nothing with.
Well, they didn't know how many more developers were going to team up with the two that are already suing us.
Yep.
And once you get sued, it's not like you can say, "Hey, I don't want to play no more. My bad." You got to fight the lawsuits.
Yeah.
And
what law are they saying that you broke?
Tortious interference on their contracts, which is okay. It's a beatable lawsuit. Mm-hmm. And it was the Lanham Act for our marketing tactics. We offered 100% money back guarantee that if we can't get you out of a contract, we'll give you your money back. Mm-hmm. And for 7.5 years, we had a 2% cancellation rate where we had to refund people.
Yep.
And so we stood behind our right. guarantee. So they were frivolous lawsuits, but they were still lawsuits that we had to fight. Mm-hmm. My insurance company was not covering our lawsuit. The insurance we had on the company. Yep. So I'm now in a battle with two of the largest timeshare, $2 billion, multi-billion-dollar companies. They're suing my company, me and my wife personally. And then I'm also suing my insurance company to try and get them to cover my lawsuit. So for 2 years, my wife and I were funding this battle out of our personal bank account. And we filed a Chapter 11 on the company to put a blanket over us so no one else could sue us. Mm. And For 2.5 years, I remember my kids were being drugged through this shit. It was hard to explain to our family what the hell was going on. They never for a million years.
They probably thought you were doing something illegal.
Thought I was a criminal.
Yeah.
Went from being the saint to now what the fuck do you get yourself into, kid? And I just told them, don't Google my name. Don't pay attention to it. I was on the news in Orlando, everything.
Wow.
And 2.5 years go by. My attorneys told me to shut down all social media. Basically,
you're still operating, though. You're still generating revenue, making money during the 2 years.
When we filed the Chapter 11, they appointed a trustee immediately, which told us to shut the company down. I had to stand in front of, at this point, I had to stand in front of 140 team members in my lunchroom.
Yeah.
And let them all go at one time. And you want to talk about a team that had your back, and then now they think you just completely fucked them. So and at this stage, Chris, I'm speaking on Grant Cardone stages. I've caught the attention of some players.
That's where I first heard you. Just so the audience knows, this is 2018, maybe or 17 at a Grant Cardone event. I got front row. I actually sponsored that event. I had sponsored the whole event, and so I got front row tickets. And I'm in between speakers. Somebody comes up, is like, "My name's Eric Cline. I've been smoking crack for about 15 years." When I heard smoking crack, everybody literally stopped what they were, because it was during the break, and stopped and looked at Eric, and he just goes to town, like just pouring into the crowd.
Yeah.
Hey, we did 40, 30, $50 million in revenue. I blew it all up. I used to smoke crack.
Yeah.
And I'm back up here. And I was like, I fucking like this dude.
Yeah.
That's where I saw you, and then we end up connecting. We'll talk about it later, how we connected later at a different mastermind, and you heard me speak. But go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt.
It was crazy. So 2.5 years, and you want to talk about me and my wife coming from recovery, coming from nothing, having the come up we had as fast as we had it.
Yeah.
Because it was fast.
Yeah.
We started making money real quick, and it was real money. So we come, at this time, Chris, we got a $7 million home. We got a $2 million home in the Keys. We got a $2 million home in Chicago. Financially, we didn't know, we didn't think that it would ever end. And we were overspending, man.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We were making really good money, but we didn't ever think, what if something happened?
You didn't know it was going to end.
We were leveraged to the gill. We had $11 million in just mortgage notes that her and I had on personal homes.
That weren't being serviced by tenants or nothing.
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
That y'all stroking checks and mortgage just to have as vacation.
Every month.
Wow.
And we would go to the Keys, we'd go to Chicago, and we'd come back to our $7 million home on the water in Fort Lauderdale, driving the Rolls Royces, the Range Rovers, you name it. And it all came to an end overnight. Income shut off. Wasn't making a dollar. My attorneys told me, I don't want you doing anything while this lawsuit's going on, because they think if they're going to think you took that money to start this one, and now they're going to come after that company. So my attorneys literally told me, you can't do anything. I was freaking out. And from two people that come from smoking crack and banging heroin to doing what we do, and I don't want to say losing it all, but losing our income. And it was a lot for me and her not to go back to our old ways.
Yeah.
At least for me, it was.
Yeah. You were questioning yourself again.
You're goddamn right I was, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
On a day, and we were questioning our marriage at this point. It was driving a wedge in between me and my wife. We were fighting it was the worst ever. And I remember at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning one night, Chris, it was our last 30 days before fighting this lawsuit. And even real quick before that, I remember I got done with an 8-hour deposition. And I was sitting across the attorney that was suing us after everything was done, and I was sitting like this. He knew I was smoked, just wore out, beat up. And he goes, "Hey, kid." I looked up at him and I was like, "What?" He goes, "Let me just tell you one thing. If you can make it through this, you can make it through anything in life." Little did he know, I literally have goosebumps. Little did he know, he lit a fucking fire under me. I ended up going home, going to bed, waking up at 3 a.m, fucking slapped Shyla on the ass, and I said, "Honey, get up." I was like, let's settle with these motherfuckers. I was like, we need our life back. Because they were getting ready to come in and go through our drawers. And dude, it was nonsense.
And so much money they were just throwing at it.
They wanted to ruin us.
Yeah.
And if we didn't get out, a wise man told me, guy named Jordan Zimmerman, owns Zimmerman Advertisement in South Florida. The only billionaire I ever had the chance to sit and talk with. He called me up and he goes, Eric, you already lost this lawsuit. He goes, give them what they want so you can start over. He goes, you lost it the day they filed this on you. He goes, you'll never beat who you're trying to fight. Take your ego, set it aside, give them what they want. So the last 30 days, Chris, of fighting that lawsuit, it cost me and my wife $500,000 for 30 days. We were going to lose it all. And I woke my wife up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, Shyla, get up. I said, let's get whatever they want. Let's give it to them. I said, if we got to go to zero, let's go to zero. I said, but give me a year and a half and I'll get it all back for us. I was prepared to go to zero again, but I knew in my head this zero was so different than the first time because they could take my money, but they couldn't take what I learned.
Your skills.
They couldn't take it.
You couldn't take your skills.
Nah, and they fucking, when that attorney looked at me in the eyes and said that, I was like, it's go time. It's fucking go time. And we ended up settling for millions of dollars. Blessed enough that we had shit structured the way we had our money parked in certain places. Mm-hmm. I had $2.5 million in my home in Fort Lauderdale. Homestead, they can't fuck with it. So
you didn't come out with nothing. You got some equity and some assets you got to keep.
We came out with about $4 million.
Okay, so you wasn't a scratch. So that's good.
Yeah. So this restart was way different than starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And ended up, someone told me about the wholesale industry, and
this is where I had to tell the story, guys. I wanted you guys to hear the whole story because I know a lot of you guys follow me. You've been following me for years, through when you probably first found me through Grant Cardone. When I did my first interview on wholesaling, and I've been in this industry about 8 years now, and I've wholesaled, probably 1,000 transactions by now in the past 8 years, seen the gurus come and go, seen the talent come and go. And I wanted Eric to tell you the story because this is why he's going to disrupt this industry and is disrupting this industry because of this story.
Yeah.
There ain't nobody that's been through this.
Yeah.
Not one person I know of.
I'm not a rookie.
No, no, not at all. So let's talk about wholesaling now. You started, I think you went to an event. Let's talk about everything, how you got into wholesaling.
Yep. Heard about, a couple guys were telling me about the industry, and I, probably like a lot of people, I'm like, man, to get someone to sell you a house over a phone, I'm good, but I don't know if I'm that good.
Yeah.
So I was hearing about it for like 6 months. And at this point, I knew I needed to do something. Like the sitting around trying to figure it out, I had to hone in on something and say, all right, I'm going to go all in on this. And I did enough research, and I knew it was possible. So what I did is I told Shyla, I said, honey, I want you to look into this, because she's been my business partner since day one. Her and I have been life partners, business partners since the day I walked out of treatment. And anything I do, she's right beside me. And I said, honey, what do you think about wholesaling? Can you just do a little bit of research yourself and see what you think about it? And she gave me the nod, let's go. And I was like, all right, cool. She set me up 2 computer screens, a headset, and I hired a couple cold callers. And I didn't know anything about the industry, but I knew how to sell. I knew at the end of the day, it was having a conversation with somebody. Yeah. And I, by this time, had my own sales process that I could put in any business over the phone. So, and I had to humble myself, Chris, because I could have easily said, you know what, I'm going to go hire. I had some money, dude. I could say, I'm going to open an office, hire some guys, and let them do this shit for me. But I humbled myself and I sat back in the seat, because I went from having 100 guys on the phones to I hadn't closed a deal in a little while.
5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. So I told my wife, I'm going to get back in the seat. I'm going to put a headset on my head, and I'm going to get in the trenches, pick a shovel up, and get back to work. And she set it in the back room of our house. She set up 2 computer screens, a headset, and I got the picture of me. I went like this, it was day one of me saying I'm going to be a wholesaler. And it took me on my 4th month in the industry, I funded $100,000. Closed and funded deals, $100,000.
Wow.
Now I did a couple smaller deals before that, but I remember it took me 4 months and 1 month to get $100,000. And then I told my wife, because I was in South Florida at the time, it was too much distractions. There was too many distractions down there for me. Old acquaintances and still the wreckage of losing that company. And I told Shyla, I was like, I need to get out of here and I need to go somewhere and do this just by myself. And having an amazing wife, she knew what it was going to do for us and for me personally. So we packed up a 19-foot U-Haul. And we ended up, I thought I wanted to go to my hometown again in Rockford, Illinois. And she's like, you're out of your fucking mind. I'm not going there with you. You can go try it out for yourself. Went there for 90 days. She suited up a 3-bedroom townhome for me. We got a little office. Without wasting too much time talking about that part of it, I was there for 60 days. I called her up and I said, honey, this is not for me. She drove her ass back, packed up another 19-foot U-Haul, drove me to Raleigh, North Carolina, put me in a 3-bedroom condo. And I launched a 2,000 square foot office there, just me, in an office by myself, 2 computer screens, a headset, some leads, and ended up having my wife show up, my now business partner, best friend. I improved the model to where they both were like, all right, we can do this. And our first 12 months, we did 2.6 million.
Say that again.
In our first 12 months, from the day I made my first phone call, 12 months, we did 2.6 million and I ran it at a 58% profit margin. I netted 1.5 million my first 12 months.
I bet nobody in the industry has ever done that in the first 12 months.
I have yet to hear someone say it, and I'm very loud about it.
Yes, nobody's done that I've met.
I've talked to all the players, I think, and I've told them my numbers, and the ones I've at least talked to, they go, bro, I've never even done that.
Yeah.
So
my first year, I did it part-time my first year because I had my oil change quick lubes. I did it part-time. My first year I did 378,000. That was part-time. My second year I did 860,000 my second year. So just to give you guys some perspective.
Yeah.
And I fancy myself as being really good at this. So this is next level, marketing and sales, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get into nitty-gritty now, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted everybody to hear a story. I mean, we went 48 or 45 minutes just on the story because you have to hear the story to know where the man's been, to know where he's come and where he's going.
Yeah.
You have so many skills that and a work ethic combined. I forgot who said that, but greatness is when hard work, like somebody that's got a work ethic also has mad skills. Yeah. Right. And if you have somebody that has really, really good work ethic and can mesh that, you're dangerous. You're fucking dangerous.
You're dangerous.
And that's what has happened.
Yeah.
I'm
blessed.
Yeah, you're blessed. You're blessed. You're the Michael Jordan of wholesaling, right? You've trained and worked so hard, and you have such a background, and that there's nobody in the industry that's been trained like you. Went through call centers and all that I know of. So
14 years I've lived in a call center.
Yeah, that's
at a high level.
You've got the reps, right?
Yep.
Bruce Lee once said, I do not fear the man that knows 10,000 moves. I fear the man that's done one move 10,000 times. And you, my friend, of the Bruce Lee of wholesaling.
Appreciate that.
I say wholesaling, of just being on the phone.
Yeah.
Right? And I keep telling you guys this because you got to put in the reps.
You have to.
You have to.
It's a must.
Yeah, you can have there are people that are naturally skilled, but a lot of people ruin that because they don't have the work ethic.
Yep.
So, but even if you got the natural skill, you still got to put in the reps.
Yeah. So
you did both, right?
Yep.
So we sit now. Your first year you did 2.6. You've been through a lot. I love that you and your wife are together. Me and my wife kind of we have the same story, and we kind of just love how you do things together. Me and my wife works in the business. She handles my flips, the Airbnbs, so land development stuff. So you got to pick up on these things that you got to, because you can't do all this on your own.
No.
You probably would have fell apart if your wife wasn't supporting you.
I am certain.
Yeah.
She's my rock.
Yeah, 100%.
She's my biggest cheerleader.
Yep. I say that about Patty too. It's so important. It gives you an unfair advantage to the other man doesn't have that woman that's pushing them.
I feel bad for those jokers.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
Yeah.
People don't understand the power in this.
Yep. And they watch and guard you. And they
like
watch.
no other.
Yeah, and they can sniff out people that have bad intentions, who are trying to secretly, misuse you or take advantage of you. So that is, first off, that's one of the reasons. One of the fundamental reasons you're successful today too is the skills, the time behind the seat.
Yep.
And a woman that won't quit on you.
Never. Day one.
Yep. So for you guys that are listening, the cool thing too is that I love that you failed so much.
Yeah.
Because there's so many learning lessons in that. Right? Hitting rock bottom twice like that. You hit rock bottom physically from a drug chemical standpoint. Mm-hmm. Then you hit, almost pretty much rock bottom, losing that company, and you came out with a little bit of money, but where that company you'd probably be worth a couple $100 million by now.
Yeah.
If that shit would have went
100%, man.
You'd be sitting here.
So I'll say this. Everything happens for a reason, I believe.
Yeah.
And back then, Chris, when I was getting ready to make $54 million between me and my wife, right? Yeah. I was an ego-driven maniac at this point. I wasn't doing any self-development. And I was recklessly spending it. Like, I wanted if I walked out of a house, I wanted everyone to know I was Gucci'd from the head down to the feet. And not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yep.
Like, wear your designer shit. I still wear it today, but I only wore it because I wanted people to see it. Mm-hmm. That was it.
Yep.
And I was at this point, I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good father. There were so many things that I was making money, but other areas of my life were fucking going to hell in a handbasket. And I believe I wasn't going to meetings at this point. I wasn't working on myself at all. Yeah. I was filling a void, monetary, what is it? Material void mm-hmm. that was not fillable.
Yeah.
And I believe the reason the deal fell through is because there was a power greater than myself that knew if I got my hands on that kind of money at that phase of my life, my marriage was going to be done.
Yeah.
I was going to go, I very easily could have put a dope pipe back in my mouth and I'd have been 6 feet under. It's a blessing I didn't get that money.
Guys, what he just said is so true. There's a song, a country music singer says, "Thank God for unanswered prayers." And I firmly believe you get what you're supposed to get.
Yes.
And God has ways of touching you that you just can't understand but until maybe 5, 8, 10 years later.
I know today.
Yeah. You're probably right.
Yeah.
With all that money and no more game, you might have slipped back into something or maybe you and your wife go different ways.
It would have been a death sentence for me, I think.
Yeah. You probably maybe weren't ready.
Yeah.
Maybe, possibly. But
I know today that's the case.
Yeah.
Like, me and my wife are we're more aligned right this moment.
Yep.
There's a reason she's out here with me. Like, I look at what people have, right?
Yep.
Certain lifestyles and all that. And me and my wife pay attention to the way you and Patty get to roll. And at the end of the day, we eventually want that.
Yep.
Like, are we there right now today? No, but one of our goals, at least for me, a big goal, I want to be able to load my wife and my dogs and my kids up in a camper and go for 30 days.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. But I know you can do that.
Yeah.
So I admire that you've been able to get to that point in your life. And ultimately, that's the freedom that we want.
Yep.
And it's going to take some work.
You're going to do it a lot faster than I did. I'll tell you that. I don't have those type of, because you said you had 150, 200 people that you trained all those guys.
Yeah.
And you just transmigrated all that training into the wholesale space. And now you're training your own cold callers, training your own closers, all that stuff at the office.
Yep.
And it's working, right?
Yeah.
It's scaled beyond faster than I've ever seen. And just so we're transparent, guys, what Eric does is high level wholesaling. When you watch this, you're like, oh shit, man, I can do what Eric can do. You need to take a step back and understand what he does. You got to learn basic fundamental sales closing first, probably in person before you hop on a phone. And you probably could train on the phone if you start them there from the get go. But to scale a nationwide or wholesaling virtually, it's a little bit more cumbersome and it takes a little bit more money. To get going versus if you're just going to say go send some letters or put some bandit signs out in your backyard. So just understand this is a gradient scale to what you're doing. But if you want to scale a wholesaling business, this is probably the best and only way I know of, because I've done your model. It's scalable, but it's tough.
You can burn quick.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right systems and processes and mindset on how to do this thing.
Yep.
I've over the last because I've been in it just over 2 years. I've just now stepped into helping people scale their operations virtually, right? I don't do door to door. I don't teach people how to flip and buy real estate. I don't look at this as the real estate game. I look at the model as sales and marketing.
Sales and marketing. Yep.
I never once said I was in real estate until I actually started buying some properties.
Yep.
But the wholesale model for me is nothing but sales and marketing. It's transactional. The home is just the thing you get to talk about a little bit. Other than that, it is strictly sales and marketing for me. And if you're not getting the right ROI on your marketing spend, or you don't have the right KPIs, key performance indicators to track. Yep. I run the entire model off KPIs and numbers. Yep. My sales process, the entire team follows it.
It's all duplicatable.
I can pluck just about anybody in the seat that's teachable with a work ethic and a good attitude, and I can put them in a seat, and within the first 30 days, I can get 5 contracts out of them.
Yeah. You've done it. You've demonstrated it.
That's it.
You've got one kid in your office, you told me last night, 22 years old. Talk
21.
About that, 21. Talk about that guy, what you told me last night.
Found me on social media, said, I want to come work for you, which I get all the time. And I was like, send me a 30-second video why you think I should hire you. Sent me a 30-second video. He's from, it's either Brooklyn or Bronx in New York. And he sent me a 30-second video. I said, all right, let's jump on a Zoom. Jumped on a Zoom with him. I said, what sales experience do you have? Little to none, right? His dad, I think, is in sales. So I don't think he had any coming here. And he goes, I'll pack my shit up and I'll be there next week. He's 20 years old at the time. And I was like, listen, just because you come here does not mean you get to keep a seat. You got to earn it when you get here. So if you pack your stuff up and you come to North Carolina, you're not guaranteed a job. He goes, I'll be there next week. I was like, I like this kid. So he packs his shit up. He comes. And in the beginning, and I don't even know if he even knows this. I may have said it in a meeting, but I was getting ready to let him go. Because I usually give somebody 30 days. Mm-hmm. If they don't impress me in 30 days, I cut them. And I told my wife, I'm like, shit, I don't know if Kevin's got it. He made a long haul at 20 years old to come and try and give this thing a shot. And she goes, just give him a shot. And so we did some recording training with him, all that shit. And he ended up being a rock star. Last month, it would have been his 4th month. Last month, he closed and funded on $325,000 in assignment fees by himself.
And you got to understand where this man's been and why he is so successful and why he's going to take over and dominate the wholesale space as far as his company. It's because of his track record, where he's been, the call center, the experience, him being so down and out.
Yeah.
You had to build, man.
Yeah.
That was an unfair advantage too. Hey, dude, smoking crack and being in a bad place in 5 days, that's
rough.
That's a rough place to be. Like you've been through war.
Yeah. War.
In your head.
Yeah.
Mental war, where you're like, hey man, this ain't worth it. I'm sure you probably contemplated suicide.
Everything. I was too much of a coward to even make the suicide work.
Yep. And so I can imagine what you've been through, and it's made the man you are today.
Yeah, I'm blessed, man.
Yeah. So you're like a knife that's been so sharp, and you've been beat up, and you still here. So, Eric, this was great. I mean, you dropped so much knowledge too on your Instagram.
Yes.
Your brand's Sales Goat.
Virtual sales guy. Yeah.
So cool. For you guys that don't follow him, I would follow him on Instagram at Eric Cline, at Eric Cline.
The Eric Cline.
The Eric Cline. I highly, highly recommend you guys to follow this guy. If you're just getting started, start watching his videos, get acquainted. And if you have a wholesaling business and you're doing really good already, this is probably if you want to take it to the next level and scale, this is the guy you probably need to hire to, get a sales team. Because I don't teach any type of call center. Like that's not my model. My model is backyard wholesaling.
Yep.
Partnering up with people, which we talked about. It works for me. But if you want to scale to massive levels, millions of dollars, you're going to have to do his model.
Yeah.
Because you can't, what I'm doing is not scalable.
It's not scalable.
Right. It's super profitable, but it's not scalable. What Eric's doing, you can probably get his models probably can get up to $4 to $6 million if I had to guess.
Well, this year our goal was 4 million, Chris. I've been saying here over the last 60 days we're going to hit 4 million. I don't think we are. I'm as transparent about my numbers.
Yep.
My numbers are real numbers.
Yep. You showed them to me. I saw your KPIs. You showed me.
They're real.
Yep.
We're going to probably be at like 3.5.
Yep.
So we'll probably be about $500,000 short of 4.
That's still incredible numbers.
It's almost $1 million jump from last year. So yeah, you can make money in this model.
Mostly cold calling, mostly mostly cold calling, a little bit of PPC we talked about last night. So, but Eric's going to be dropping a lot of nuggets at the mastermind here. Eric's going to probably speak at least maybe once a year at one of my events. So if you guys want to hook up with him, come to one of my events, hear him talk, come to one of Eric's events. Just follow Eric at the Eric Cline. If you're watching this for the first time, give it a like, give it a share. Share this with somebody that's been in a bad spot drug wise. Me and Eric both were ex-drug addicts. I went to rehab. Eric went to, you can come back
multiple rehabs.
Yeah, you can come back from the bottom.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I have to pinch myself. Me and Patty live an amazing life, and I've been at the bottom, man, where everybody hated me. Snorting cocaine, staying up, just doing crazy stuff, just like Eric.
Yes.
And I truly believe people like me and Eric are extremists.
Yeah.
Whatever we get into,
we're gonna go all in, baby.
We're gonna do it to the point we're gonna be the best. You want to do some drugs? Hey, let's go do some drugs.
Yeah.
you wanna go and do a business? Hey, we're going all in.
Yep.
And I had the same stories. Just why I relate to you. And I think I told you this because I see that hustler in you.
Yeah.
When I first met Eric 2 years ago, I told him.
Yep.
I said, "You going to the top."
Yeah.
I said.
Appreciate that.
You remember me telling me that?
I do.
Yeah. And I see, because I see it.
Yeah.
Because I know hustle when I see hustle.
Yeah.
So, Eric, why don't you wrap it up and end with, some final words to guys that are watching this, what would you leave with them? Most of the people follow me are from, real estate, entrepreneurship, personal development.
Yeah.
What would you leave with the audience today?
I keep it simple when it comes to how am I going to bow out of a conversation. It's, you just heard us talk for an hour plus, right? And we all come from different walks of life, but where your feet are today, they do not have to be there tomorrow. You're going to get your teeth kicked in. You're going to get punched in the gut. There's going to be a ton of ups and downs, doubters. But as long as you keep your circle tight and right, we're all supposed to have an amazing life. We really are. Life is as fair as it gets. What you put into life is exactly what you're going to get out. If no one's told you today that they believe in you, just understand that guys like this believe in you until you can believe in yourself. If no one's told you they love you, this guy right here loves you.
Awesome. Guys, we're going to wrap up this podcast, the Beyond the Skills. Make sure you follow Eric. Make sure you follow me at Real Estate Rood and Chris Rood Entrepreneur on Facebook. Reach out to me if you want to come to the masterminds. Reach out to Eric if you want to get to one of his masterminds. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of Beyond the Skills.
Nice.